The 2025 Canadian federal election was full of surprises. We had the Liberals' comeback, we had the NDP's downfall, and Pierre Poilievre losing his seat. Changes that led these many constituencies and regions to flip parties were way bigger than we thought. Let's dive into it. Terra Nova Peninsula is located in central Newfoundland, a province which its political leaning is rapidly showing, especially in this election. With a net gain of 18% in this constituency, the Conservatives had a huge breakthrough this election when they won 3 ridings, the first time since 2006. First, the Liberals won by 12 votes this constituency that got recounted by Élections Canada on May 9th and gave the win to Jonathan Rowe, the Conservative candidate, by, you guessed it, 12 votes. Terra Nova is not an isolated case. Right there, Long Range Mountains had a total of 25% net gains since 2015, 24% in central Newfoundland, and in St. John's East, 6%. According to CBC, this conservative trend is actually due to the skepticism around Carney's economic policies and to the tiring of the provincial Liberal leadership led by Danny Williams, who has been there since 2008, when he won on his slogan, anything but conservative, which is basically vote for anything but blue. So basically, many Newfoundlanders are expressing miscontent towards this provincial leadership. As we can see on this poll by Free Trade Canada, only 18 seats are held by the Liberals and 17 by the Conservatives. The next riding I'd like to look at is Terrebonne, which is located in the Montreal suburbs on the North Shore. Montreal and Laval are usually considered Liberal strongholds, whereas the suburbs around it are usually Bloc strongholds. But this election, everything changed. Prior to the 2025 federal election, the Liberals only held 4 seats. But after this election, they actually now hold 11 seats, which is the highest amount of suburbs that a Liberal has held since 1980, when Pierre Elliott Trudeau had his Quebec landslide. And this isn't just a surprise, it's a long-term build-up. Since 2015, the Liberals had a net gain of 32% in Terrebonne, which led it to become red the first time since 1980, and it wasn't even a constituency, so I guess it's a first time. The craziest thing about this is that the Liberals didn't only make progress in Terrebonne. In Rivière-des-Mille-Îles, the net gain was 34%, in Thérèse de Blainville it was 36%, and in Repentigny, which they didn't win this election, was 30%. According to a CTV article, the main reason why Montreal suburbs shifted this election was because of Quebec sovereignists who actually made the decision to save Canada's independence rather than becoming the 51st state. The second reason is basically the NDP's downfall, which led to Liberals winning even more seats, but the main reason why this constituency had so much attention was because of the many recounts it held over the last few weeks. At first, the Liberals won this constituency, but then the Bloc flipped again back to the Liberals column with only 1 single vote. NDP's downfall was big this election, and in Ontario, it shows. They lost party status, they now hold the least amount of seats in their history, and they lost all their ridings in Ontario, including Windsor West, which surprisingly gave the win to a Conservative. According to a Leader Post article, the main reason why the NDP had such a huge collapse was because of the coalition they made with the Liberals, which gave in Ontario many wins to the Conservatives. One of the other reasons for this collapse, according to David McGrain, a political scientist professor at the University of Saskatchewan, was because of NDP switchers. This section of voters actually chose to vote for another party because of the urgency of the situation, and in Ontario, they actually made the choice of voting for Conservatives. The NDP actually lost 17% of their vote in their previous seats: London Fanshawe, Hamilton Centre, and Windsor West. If Transcona and Mountain Griesbach and the free seats in Ontario gave the win to the Conservatives, in Calgary, there's still an interesting shift that's happening right now. This conservative city actually had a net gain of 23% in favor of the Liberals over the last 10 years. So this is obviously due in part of the NDP's collapse, but the main reason was because of more and more campaigning from the Liberals in the region and the growing urban population, which led it to become a battleground. The last constituency I'd like to talk about is Burnaby Central because it actually demonstrates how the NDP lost this election, especially in British Columbia. Prior to this election, the NDP actually had a net gain of 5% in this constituency over the last decade. It was the same in Vancouver Fraserview and Courtenay Alberni, so it's very specific to this election. What's crazier about this riding is that Jagmeet Singh, NDP's former leader, actually lost this seat being in the 3rd position. Don't get me wrong, the situation is practically the same for most MPs in British Columbia. MPs from Port Moody Coquitlam, New Westminster Burnaby Meyerville, Cowichan Malahat Langford, Victoria, Esquimalt Saanich Sooke, North Island Paul River, Skeena Bulkley Valley, and Similkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay all lost their seats. According to CBC, quote, UBC political scientist Stuart Press said the NDP was squeezed out because the party just didn't have what it takes to deal with threats from US President Donald Trump compared to the Liberals and Conservatives. Now that the election is truly over, parties can now reflect on their results and get restarted for next election. But I'd like to know, which constituency would you focus on?